Hello, and welcome back to Sean Ruins Fitness. I am the owner of JRT Fit, J Range Training, as well as a fellow at the National Board of Fitness Examiners, and I'm here with my friend
Dan, nice to see you again.
And we're here today to talk about sit-ups. I want to ruin sit-ups. I want to ruin sit-ups. There's a lot of people that teach sit-ups, a lot of trainers that teach sit-ups, a lot of coaches that teach sit-ups.
In high school, we're forced.
In middle school and high school, everywhere.
Right.
And I want to ruin sit-ups.
Oh, please do.
The fun part about that is that a lot of times when people find out that I don't teach sit-ups, they'll say, well, okay, so you teach crunches. And I say, no, I don't. See, sometimes they don't teach sit-ups anymore. They teach these things called curl-ups, which is kind of like an in-between sit-up and crunch, forward crunch. I don't teach either, and it's for the same reason.
And that is?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Well,
thanks for asking, Dan. So here's the issue, the scientific issue with sit-ups. You're stretching, stabilizing muscles while you're telling them to contract in order to stabilize.
You're confusing them.
Well, there's no such thing as muscle confusion. We've talked about that in a different podcast. But yes, you're telling them to do something that they're not in a good position to do. Okay, so we talked a little bit in a previous podcast about stretching.
Okay.
And how stretching before you do an exercise actually causes an issue with being able to do that exercise very well. You remember that talk?
I do.
Okay. And so the problem is with sit-ups, for example, is that you're stretching a muscle in the middle of working that muscle. So it's not just before, it's during. Okay, let's talk about sit-ups a little bit deeper so that you can hopefully understand this. Okay, so a sit-up itself, it uses the hip flexors to actually pull yourself up. So it doesn't use the abs to pull yourself up into that position. It uses these little hip muscles right here. Okay, you do work your stomach. You work the transverse muscle that I've also talked about previously. It's the deep abdominal muscle that's underneath the six-pack. Okay, and you don't work that six-pack muscle very hard at all.
I don't
doing
either.
A sit-up. You don't either?
Oh,
during
no.
a sit-up.
I don't work it at all.
We
working on a 12-pack.
We need to change that, though.
We do.
We talked about how we're going to change that. We're going to help you out a little bit. But we got to get through these first topics for now before we get into that. But when you're actually contracting, you're doing that movement of a sit-up, at the very top, you might bring your xiphoid process, which is the bottom portion of your sternum, towards the pubis. And that's actually what creates the contraction for the rectus abdominis. But that's the only point that you're actually working that. Rectus abdominis is that six-pack. So the only time you're working the six-pack is at the top of a sit-up.
So then really all you should do is at the top.
Well, if your goal is to work the six-pack, the question would be at that point is, should I just do that top motion? Or is there something better that's actually also safer? Because at the same time, we always have to look at safety versus effectiveness of an actual exercise. Okay, so
you don't want to hurt yourself doing the exercise.
Well, right. You have to look at the effects of it, and as well as like if the benefits are just off the charts, then we can add a little bit of risk to that, and that's okay in certain cases, unless your goal is to basically make it so that there's no risk to any exercise, then of course you just probably not work out because there's always a risk. But that's probably not a good idea either. So you always have to kind of balance it. It's a balancing act. And so with that sit-up though, you're not working that six-pack very well. You're working the transverse, but there are better ways to work the transverse. But what's happening is you're curling up while you're in that leaned position. Now, what that means is that you're stretching the back muscles because you're putting them in a stretched state. Does that make sense? By curling?
Right.
Now, before we get any further here, it's important to note that I've actually taught a lot of trainers and physical therapists to not do sit-ups. I've explained it to them. I've explained it to them in groups at times. And sometimes there's a trainer that says, oh, I can do a sit-up without curling, and it's super fun. So I just whip my phone out and say, awesome, do it. I'll record it. And you can't do it. It's not possible. So
It's like licking your elbow. You can't do it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
One
there
more
might be a
thing.
genetic mutation somewhere where someone has it makes that possible. But yeah, in general, as a human race, we can't do that.
Right.
So you're curling the back, which means you're stretching not just the spinal erector muscles that we've talked about a couple of times, those muscles that keep you erect, upright, right?
Right.
But also the little tiny stabilizing muscles, the multifidus, which are the ones that stabilize the spine that are the deepest muscles in there. So you're actually stretching all of those by putting them in that position and then telling them to contract in order to, because of your position forces them to contract because they have to stabilize the spine because it's a bad position. It's a hard position. So they're being told to contract in a terrible position while they're stretched, which makes it so that they don't work very well. Remember that myotatic reflex I talked about in that other?
Vaguely, I do. Yes.
Yeah, where they freak out and cause a
Oh,
hypercontraction.
right. Yes, I
So
recall. Yes.
that can happen because of that, which does happen with some people with a sit-up after a while or with weakness or something like that. But the big thing is that you can't stop that from happening during a sit-up. So we are stretching that, and what's that mean? So the stress is going down your spine.
Okay.
Because of your position. Your position is not a very beneficial position for the spine, so it has to work in order to stabilize that position. So by putting the stress there, the stress has to go somewhere. If the muscles are not able to contract very well, then that means the stress goes somewhere else.
And that would be
The ligaments,
okay.
as well as the intervertebral discs.
Yes.
Ooh, that's not good.
And that's I mean, anybody that's had back problems or any kind of disc problems knows
that that's not a good idea. And actually, a lot of people with lower back problems will realize, well, these sit-ups hurt me. Why would I do them?
And the older you get, the harder that is.
In your invincible 20s, when you can do just about anything and you think that everything is just fine for you, then you're
And
like,
30s.
oh, no, these are great. I can do them all the time and it never hurts. It's like, really, you're 23 years old and you can do them without hurting? That's amazing.
Try 58. You just want to sort of get up the couch. Sometimes that hurts.
Right. And I know this got kind of technical, but like I said, the long and short is the muscle stretch, which forces the stress to go elsewhere, and that's not a good thing. Can we prevent that? And the answer is not if you're doing a sit-up. So the risk of injury goes up here.
So what is the beneficial point of doing sit-ups then?
Well, it works the transverse. People think that they're working the actual six-pack, but they're not working it very well. They're not working it hard. So you can do a reverse crunch where you bring the pubis up towards the xiphoid process, and that actually is more beneficial and safer. And I always have people actually keep a curve in their spine while they do that, which is a little mental game in itself. But
So in other words, you be on your back and you pull your legs up.
precisely. But it has less to do with the legs and more to do with the tilt. But yeah,
Okay.
the tilt of the pelvis up.
Right. I get you.
But
Makes good. I mean, it's more sense.
and then of course if you want harder, you can do the hanging version of that.
And
Where
I've seen that.
and once again, the leg lifting itself, that's hip flexor. So I'm not saying to do leg lifts. I'm saying that tilt of the pelvis is what you need to do while you're attempting to not completely straighten the back at the same time. And I know that seems paradoxical, but it's actually possible. And the transverse can be worked in a lot of other ways. So the plank is the easiest transverse exercise to do. However, you can do ball tucks, you can do ball planks, you can do ball hand planks, you can do 3-ball planks, you can do 3-ball tucks, you can do 4-ball plank, 4-ball tucks, you can do 3-ball push-up position or push-ups, which of course that works chest and triceps as well, but it still adds to the
That's
challenge
where
because
your
you're moving it.
hands are on those
Yeah,
balls.
and I'll post a video on our YouTube here for people to see a example of me doing those 4-ball push-ups. It's something that's
been pushed by you to do them, and they
I
suck.
have not told you to do 4-ball
No, not
push-ups.
4-ball, 2-ball, or 2 or 3, and those hurt.
They're,
The balls, they suck.
but they're good on your stomach. It's actually
I
one of the
agree, they
hardest things you
are.
can do on your stomach because you're sitting there not stabilized
I
at
couldn't
all.
cough afterwards. It hurt. They work. They're tough.
You're not convincing them.
No, but the point is that they're tough. I've done them a few times, and
They look ridiculous. Let's be honest with it. Like,
They
if
do,
I show
but
the
you know-
video, and hopefully everyone's seen the video now. Hopefully, well, maybe I'll pause right now and do the video now. Okay, so there was the videos, and I'll actually put it in, so
Right.
it'll work. But now you can see that does not look hard. It is way harder than it looks.
agreed.
And I've had people be like, "Oh, I can do that," and I've had trainers say that. Oh, they can't. It's so fun to.
They hurt.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But the goal is to get stronger with that transverse. So that's basically one of the best ways to actually do that instead of just increasing your plank time indefinitely. That, to me, that doesn't make as much sense. But
Start
we didn't talk
gradual.
about crunches yet, though.
Crunches, okay.
Okay, so I said no sit-ups, but why not no crunches? See, crunches or curl-ups, pretty similar. The curl-ups are a little more than crunches. So I think talking about crunches should also talk about why sit-up or the curl-ups aren't that great as well. But the crunches are similar to the forward crunch specifically, where you're bringing your head down forward, things like that. That's similar to a sit-up where you are actually stretching everything there. And of course, there are some people that say to not pull on your neck because that can hurt your neck, and they know that. But I would argue it actually will degrade the actual joints in the neck a little bit, quite a bit slower than sit-ups degrading the joints in your lower back. But it'll still do it throughout time. And the reason why it's not as bad is because you're not as far up. You don't have as much weight that you're creating stress with in order to actually transfer that stress to the joint. Does that make sense?
It does, but what part does the crunch actually work on you?
The crunch itself is that rectus abdominis. It's the
So
six-pack. That
okay.
is the six-pack. So once again, the risk of injury, it's definitely not up here like sit-ups. It's more right here where if you do enough crunches throughout time, you'll probably create forward neck syndrome, upper cross syndrome, which leads to kyphosis, which is hunchback. So not a great idea on that realm if you do too many of them, but then at the same time, you'll more than likely cause stabilizing issues in this portion of your actual back as well. So the upper thoracic to the lower cervical. However, you can do reverse crunch style things, and that's perfectly safe. So I don't understand why you wouldn't just want to take the safer route. You can make it far more difficult. Doing a hanging reverse crunch without doing the leg lift, that's ridiculously difficult compared to any sort of forward crunch that you could do. And I think the one exception to that may be if you're doing a forward crunch on a cable machine where you have the rope behind you and doing it down like that. That can be hard as well, but you can also rig a cable machine with a strap around it to make it so you can put it around your knees and do that reverse crunch with the same
seems
weight.
like a lot of work to do that.
Well, sure, but if there are some people that want a much harder rectus abdominis workout. So I'm just kind of explaining how you can progress it without ever having to do the forward crunch or the sit-ups.
I'm obviously not one of those people.
Not this week.
Not next week either.
2 weeks? Well,
All right,
that's
we'll look
Christmas.
into After that, yeah, we'll think about it.
After Christmas, we'll talk
right
about
after
it?
my birthday,
Right after your birthday?
Yeah.
25th
June.
of June.
No, I'm
That's
kidding.
about 7 months down.
Yeah, you're catching on.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Second week of January.
I'll have him doing it soon. Don't worry.
He will.
We'll show
mean.
Dan. That actually might be fun to do. That might be fun to actually show where you're at right now and then where you're at down the road.
That'd be awesome. I'd be all about that. That'd be very
kind
cool.
of fun.
Truly
Might do
would
that.
be.
So yeah, and I think that I covered everything as far as sit-ups go. I know it's not a long topic, but I see a lot of people teaching it, and I'm afraid that they just don't understand how this works. They say, oh, I can put something. Oh, that's the other thing they say. They say they can put like a balance disc or something under the lower back and that protects it. Okay, that just shifts it up. That prevents that portion from being injured and makes it so that your basically stress goes above that. And you're still stretching the stabilizing muscles. If you stretch stabilizing muscles and tell them to work, they don't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually.
Okay.
It does. Yeah, what you're saying makes more logical sense. I mean, we've talked about this in the years past. So I was always on board with your opinion on this.
Right.
And ever since then, the sit-ups ended, but the thing with the balls that we were talking about, those are
brutal.
That was a rudeness I was not expecting. I was afraid to do anything after parts hurt on me that shouldn't have hurt.
Right.
But it wasn't, my back was not hurting.
Exactly.
But yes, and I saw how what you made me do worked better.
Well, thank you.
And when we get back up on my horse, we will be back on those again.
Gonna get back to it.
We will. That is it. That will.
That sounds like fun. I'm sure. Comment on the YouTube if you'd like to see that. I'm curious about if anyone would, but
yeah,
I think it'd be fun, but I don't know if you think it'd be fun. If you guys think it'd be fun, then we'll do that. We'll kind of follow them through.
You guys are gonna kill me, aren't you? You're gonna say, beat his.
They'll probably be like, make him do some crazy stuff too.
God help me.
It'll be like a social experiment.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to hurt me if you tell him to do this. Then I'll cry.
Oh, we couldn't do that.
Don't get any ideas. Because he is a sadistic individual.
Oh, that is not nice, Dan.
He will make
what have I done to you to deserve such monstrosity?
Don't listen to him. Truth is, he's a heck of a good guy with this. He knows his game, and when he tells me to do it, it's like Marine drill sergeant. There's no in it. Do this.
I don't yell at you like a
no.
Marine.
It's not. There's no yelling, but he knows his game, and if he says this is the right reason, it's the right reason. I trust him, and after 2 decades of knowing him, I've seen and I believe it.
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
I'm here with him, because I believe in what he does.
Well, thank you.
It's true.
Appreciate that.
It's all good.
And we will get him back into things. And we had a little bit of a stint there where I didn't see you for a while. That was a sad time. We'll call that a repression from Dan.
I had a double bypass that was scared out of me. And, you kind of step back from things going, whoa.
Yeah.
Almost died.
Yeah.
And now you try to get back up onto your horse again going, all right, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
They left you with a zipper. And now it's like, okay, you get everything back in order again. You're like, all right, let's make this happen. Let's change this. And this time we're going to, I like
your attitude, Dan. That's good.
But, it happens. Don't let it hold you down. What are you going to do? You move on.
And we'll talk about probably heart disease or things like that, because that actually does pertain to health. And there are some things that there are some people that teach certain things that just don't follow the science, and that could be an interesting podcast.
Well, heart disease will also lead to mental health issues because it freaks you out, and when that starts, then you start going, oh my god, and you need friends and support and people who go, hey, it's okay, you're doing great.
Yeah,
little self-affirmation from your friends. It's a good thing.
Self-affirmation.
Well, not self-affirmation. Well, your friends come up and go,
how does that work?
Well, self-affirmation
I'm awesome.
I am awesome. Dude. I will beat you sideways on the river fishing. There's no prayer. Point is if your friends are with you and you have a few good friends, that's all you need. Don't need to have Facebook. Hey, I got 8,000 friends. How many of them you've talked to lately?
Now you're bringing up some other sociology things and
that's
philosophy
thing,
here. So we got to stay away from that. But
yeah,
it
keeps your head straight.
Yeah, we got to keep your head straight. That is important.
So this can affect this.
Sit-ups. You gonna be doing some sit-ups?
No.
Oh, good. So how about crunches? Forward crunches.
I don't really care for those too much.
Good. I didn't ask if you cared for them, though.
No. No.
So I expect that, I would really, really like to see gym coaches and well, really gym coaches. I mean, that starts everything. It's in the schools where they teach all this stuff. I'd love to see gym coaches stop teaching sit-ups, stop teaching forward crunches, things like that. And I know it's part of the standardized tests. I know that they have things where they force them to do like the mile run, the push-ups, the however many curl-ups, I think,
right.
pull-ups.
And curls.
And I'm going to suggest that you fight back, that you question it, that you send something, you send a letter and say, I don't want to teach these. It doesn't actually make sense. It's not actually good. And you can give them reasons. You can, if you actually are a coach and you want some good science, if you want some actual science journal articles that deal with this, please ask me. I'll send them to you. And of course, if you don't believe me, let's debate. If you're in the field, that sounds fantastic. And
he knows his game.
That'll be
he really does. I mean, it's why I listen to him.
So
truly.
But thanks for joining us again at Sean Ruins Fitness. We were here ruining sit-ups today, and as well as forward crunches. So I hope I amply did that.
And tonight he's going to ruin dinner.
How'd you know?
You're good at it.
Well, what am I going to make for? Oh wait, no, you're coming over and making it, and I'm giving you a good belly. I think we talked about that. That's what's.
If I'm making dinner,
then I'm going to go in his hot tub without him knowing. What?
No.
What?
Yeah, don't let him kid you.
All right. So have a great day and keep a very healthy life.